This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so welcome everyone to another OCP Tap session. Today we have Robert Lindauer, Robbie as a speaker. So Robbie is a software and system engineer by trade and product manager by profession. Robbie has been working for the last 10 years at Hoptroff and FSMLabs, developing and deploying secure and accurate timing systems for financial institutes, media, military, and civil systems. In particular, Robbie is participated in technical side of development and installation of several million units of highly accurate time keeping systems, grandmasters, clients, databases, etc., which are in use today in critical environments and supported organization needs that go for hundreds of nanoseconds offset to UTC with guaranteed accuracy. Let's, with no further ado, give Robert the floor. And Robert, the floor is yours.
Hi, you guys. I'm so sorry. I thought this was a completely different date. That said, I was prepared for this presentation because I was thinking it was going to happen anyway, so nothing is lost. I know many of you guys. I was looking at all the people who are here. So hi, Roel. So you guys know, some of you may know who I am. I used to be at FSMLabs. If you're not familiar with them, they made a series of grandmasters and client software. It's still very excellent in the market today. And then that was deployed, in sort of a wide variety of applications, mostly meeting security issues that were the primary thing that we were deploying for. And so today's talk isn't about really timing in general, right? It's not about algorithms and things like that. It's about critical infrastructure and resilient timing, and what at least we're doing about it. He just read all this for you, so I won't read it again. But it's true. I did participate in the installation and architecture of for millions of installations of this kind in critical infrastructure in this country and abroad. So I'm happy to talk about most of that, although I'm covered under NDAs for some of it. So why secure resilient time is important? First of all, it's legislated in certain countries, especially in finance, as you guys know, but also for military installations. The FAA, NIS2 will probably require that GNSS, for instance, is not sufficient for making a traceable time infrastructure. And for all of these military, commercial purposes, it's obviously the same thing or different. It's kind of a joke between our military customers and our banking customers. Our banking customers think, our military customers usually say something like, well, we do the most important thing in the world and we have the most secure systems in the world because what we do is so important. And then, we look over the banking customers and they say something like, well, we, transact $13 trillion a day, right? So, it's a choice.
See the slides.
Oh, I'm so sorry. You can't see it. Well, that's the worst.
Yeah, people are in the chat complaining.
Yeah, I wish you'd shut me up sooner. Thank you. Why can't you see my slides? Hold on. I thought I'd done that.
We see it now. Oh, we saw it. There was a white screen before.
That's so strange. Hold on. Screen.
You're on mute, Ramon.
Keynote. Share.
Ahmed, you are on mute.
What do we got? Does that look sensible? You guys see that?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, good. I'm not, you know what, maybe when I changed my screen, it didn't like it. Is this an acceptable resolution?
Looks good to me.
Okay, thank you so much. In any case, commercial purposes, obviously, nobody wants to lose $1 million a second. So That's why they use it. Fundamental authentication systems, just technically speaking, your SSL certificates need to be within time. And, all of these have led to, as you've seen probably recently, for instance, the Denver airport and some parts of the Russian army have been crippled just because of their inability to securely or correctly get their timing. And the funny, this is a joke, but it's not a joke, right? All the well-known attacks basically say don't use the internet for this. So don't use the internet for this, especially if you need it to be correct. And then it turns out that, because of the nature of modern warfare, because so much depends on GPS, enemies of our state have decided to weaponize this problem. And this is just one example, but there are many examples of it. These things are very effective in military situations, but unfortunately are also effective in civilian situations. So for instance, this is a photo I took outside of MI6 at Vauxhall. Those are their GPS antennas up there on the top. I was walking by with my backpack full of computers because I wanted to draw attention. My point being, they probably already know who I am, so it's fine, that these people don't rely on those antennas being there to determine where and when it is, even though they can, but they don't. So anyway, that's the kind of thing that we're talking about. And then, as I said, on the bottom end, we've got commercial grade emulators that are made by some of the people on this call that can be purchased and just plopped into the back of a van with a good amplifier and used to disrupt large amounts of equipment. And these things have happened, some of it with an effective range, as I say, more than 10 miles. I think some of it, if correctly, if somebody really wanted to do some damage, could make that more like 100 miles or 1,000 miles. And most of you know this, in the US, President Trump directed all the critical infrastructure to remove their dependency on GNSS due to these open vectors of attack. That was in 2018, I believe. And then because of the recent events, the FAA was specifically directed to remove all their GPS dependency by 2025. Similarly, the National Guard this year is rolling out in NDAA 2023 their own resilient PNT program that's likely to be shared with the rest of their military. I don't think it's a complete program, but it's a good start on it. And as I said, this is a bit of a predictive mechanism here, but I'm pretty sure as soon as NIST 2 goes into effect at the end of this year, that the EU will do the same. And then the UK, obviously, which is in that in-between state, added it to their GNSS denial to their national risk register. So if you're critical infrastructure in the UK, you have to deal with that. This is the kind. I know this is an old-fashioned person. As you guys may know, he said I was a software engineer. It's true. I'm an old-fashioned mechanic by trade, but I also do software. And the easiest thing to do is to remove, as you people who are interested in security, is to remove the vector of attack altogether if possible. Just it's the basic rule of kung fu. If you can avoid a fight, do so. In this case, it's actually pretty simple because really the open vector of attack is the antenna. And it turns out that there are ways to deliver time terrestrially and very accurately throughout the world. This wired connectivity can supplement GNSS, but it also can directly inform it. So depends on what it is that's needed. Many of our customers have obviously very custom needs. For critical infrastructure, this is something that actually Richard Hoptroff taught me at my current job, is that the more verifiable clocks, the better in general. And that means, kind of getting a lot of different time from a lot of different places. So, Ahmed was really nice and he sent me this card and I've been playing with it. It is really great. It does in fact work. I put it in my Linux box here, so that's really good. And Elad, I think, actually sent it to me. So thank you guys. So as I was trying to point out, wireless time sync alone, and this means anything really in the RF range, right? So it doesn't mean, this is, and I can tell you some war stories because I've been doing it long enough. Even things like, a semiconductor in a improperly shielded microwave can generate some really interesting other frequencies, that kind of thing. And as a result, or rats eating through wiring, for instance, makes that, like for instance, this card is it's great. You can take a PPS in and you can take a GNSS in, and that's all good. The more sources, the better. And I think that's the thing that I think in the end the federal government will endorse is, have a hard line backup. So this is what Hoptroff has done in response. They've been doing this for banking. This is my only shameless plug. Sorry, I get one shameless plug. What we've done in response essentially is to build a low latency, low jitter network that's worldwide that can deliver time. It's specifically engineered for this purpose by Richard himself. We can get delivered to a demarcation point of your choosing in major locations very quickly, 100 nanosecond offset from UTC, securely delivered at all times. We are ISO 27001 certified, so that satisfies both the European, UK, and American security requirements by treaty, and we're currently doing this for several banks now. So and many others. So we're happy to discuss that. We can deliver PTP or NTP, including our own software that will guide that clock to meet whatever requirements are required down to nanoseconds as required. Yeah, and then for special locations, we do have specific implementations for GNS denied or isolated locations specifically. And so if anyone wants to talk about that, I'm happy to. And that said, I'm Robbie Lindauer. It's hi.
All right. So maybe we can do some questions. Like again, I was hoping like we get more. Like the last slide was like, I don't know, 10 of those.
Sure.
So
Yeah,
like
if you want to start, I think this one is the funnest.
no, we're not much into
You
fun.
didn't like it. You didn't like it.
So
I
like
don't know.
going back to the last slide, I don't know how much you can basically talk about mechanisms, how things work. Let's say how you expand things. Is it can we do this?
Sure,
I know,
absolutely. Yeah, I'm happy to talk about it.
so let's say,
do you want me to describe it? Yeah, I mean, I do this 10 times a day, so this should be pretty easy.
now let's make it 11. So
I'll make it real quick. We have timing hubs located in each of the major data centers, mostly centered around financial institutions. Those are in London, Frankfurt, Milan, New Jersey, New York, Toronto, Jacksonville. We have a presence in Brazil, Los Angeles, San Francisco, et cetera, et cetera. It's represented on the map. In each of these places, we have engineered leased lines that we commissioned ourselves specifically for low latency. These leased lines then are monitored and redundant in a web format, much like you're seeing, that allows us to deliver time, for instance, from Rise all the way to Los Angeles if we want to, and get a realistic picture of what Rise is saying versus what NIST says, for instance. and we can deliver, whichever or as many of those kinds of signals to whichever or as many locations across the globe. And that's what we do currently. For instance, in Tokyo, they're backed up by NPL, just like they are in NY4. The intent is so that if you have a nuclear event or something like that, you know what I mean? And that's the realistic outlook for some of these people.
So now between these stations, like basically that web that we see there, is you have like a fiber connection, dedicated fiber connection, or each one of these stations they just rely on GPS and they have atomic clocks?
No. So we have several, exactly right. So at each of these locations, we have our own atomic clocks, and then we also have GPS connectivity, and then we also have our ground backups, so that even if, we've got, I think, 5 ways across the Atlantic right now, but if all five of them went away, we'd still have NIST in the United States, right? So that's the intent, yeah.
So now from every one of these nodes to a customer, you have like a deterministic line, you said something like this, like what does that mean? Like you go through the WAN or you have a dedicated connection? Like what is it?
Yeah, we have dedicated connections, as I said. Richard, you met him. He engineered this network over the last, set of years, actually originally for a set of clients that needed this to match MiFID, and then went out and built the rest of it as we grew. Right now we have 22 clients doing this. I think it's a very sensible thing to do. It's simple.
So let's say, looking at the map, let's say, I don't know, like I don't see anything in Middle East. Let's say Dubai, right? Let's say I have something in Dubai.
You're
and
right.
I want to have a connection. So do you have solutions for everyone, or you're limited to where you have like deterministic lines?
So, we do have that discussion. Many of our clients have their own private networks already set up, but they don't have deterministic lines, right? So they have, high, low latency, but high jitter lines.
Yes.
And so they can't use them. So in all cases, not in all cases, some customers, we have a couple of customers that had low jitter networks put in specifically for this purpose. They're absolutely welcome. We were happy to just plug a time feed directly into them. As far as the latency that we can get, we have various kinds of measurements, and I'd be happy to share it. There's a paper by Richard about it. I don't have all that data in my head, but we get very good timing across the world. We've deployed it in mobile situations even, so we can. Obviously, we're not currently military operations ourselves. So if you wanted to put it in Syria, no, we're not going to do that today. But if you needed time in some place that is normal for us, that would be relatively easy. That said, as you know, some of our principals are from the Middle East, and we're certainly working with some companies to bring timing to them. I personally have spoken to the people making, that giant, those giant automated cities on the south of Saudi Arabia, and I think, it's a neat project anyway, but they don't have a timing infrastructure in Saudi Arabia. I'd be happy to speak to them about it, but doing business with that country is difficult, as I think mostly because you have to be located there essentially to do business correctly there, is my understanding, but I don't know anything about it.
Okay. So let's say there are also these technologies, let's say microchip has one of them. I don't know, there are probably some other ones that you have a satellite-based two-way time transfer. Like, do you employ any of those? Would you think about those? Any comments on that?
We've been so we have a variety of kinds of grandmasters, that we use sort of at our core. I've spoken to Roel, I saw he was on the call, and I think they're going to integrate their timing signals with Mindberg at some point. And I know that we've already spoken to them and Mindberg about being, first on the list to do that. We're absolutely going to do that. That said, our standard is what I said above, which is, for certain situations, the more clocks that you have access to, and the more likely you're going to be able to get a correct estimate of what the time is. And if that matters, then, that's what you do.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's open the floor for more questions from the audience. Just don't forget unmute. Anyone? Nino, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question. Hey, Robert, nice to see you.
How are you? I knew there'd be people.
So I say hello from Austin. Anyway, Robert, can you tell us a little bit about your 100 nanosecond performance there on your third bullet? And
Sure. So
how do you achieve that and you measure it? Or guarantee?
Sorry?
How do you achieve that, measure it, and guarantee it?
Okay. Well, I would be happy to discuss that matter with you in private, but I don't want to discuss it right now.
Okay, not even like, let's say, parts of it.
You make clocks. I make clocks. I'm not going to tell everyone how mine works.
I know, but let's say to a certain extent, you want to measure the 100 nanosecond. Like,
yes,
so,
I can promise you several things. We've been audited several times a year on this matter. We're always right. So that's the answer.
Okay.
Can you expand on your auditor?
And it is auditable. So we have. Yes, I'd be happy to discuss this matter with you in private. We have a compliance report. We produce it. It's simple. I mean, I'm sorry.
PPS, and then you can measure it. Let's say with, a device like a Chemex Sentinel.
So Richard wrote one of the most interesting patents in this business. It's called the most likely time algorithm. It displays in detail how essentially it all works. That's the public information about it. I'm not sure what else you're asking beyond that.
So let's say if it was me, and again, that's just two different ways of doing things, I guess, right? So let's say someone asks me for that, I will show, let's say, a distribution of some clocks or something. I don't think that will really hit anything proprietary or anything, like whatever goes in the box.
Well, so I've done this many times with many clients. The easiest way to measure is, in a known situation with a known good, complementary and master, put two at each end, right, of a link, and you're going to be able to do a good calculation of the offset and delay. You could do it in Excel, but there are tools for that now.
Great.
Yeah, and we've been tested this way many times, as I said. So we're not wrong. Yeah.
Any more questions?
But Nino, I would love to speak to you later. I'm happy to. Maybe you can email me, or no, LinkedIn would work.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Robert.
Yeah, this is Greg Wolf. I apologize. I joined a little late. On the map, and I apologize, you probably answered this already, but the orange versus the blue, what does that represent?
The blue are, thank you for asking, I forgot to mention it. We have direct fiber into NIST in Colorado. I know that this is funny. Our artist person is from England, and they thought that was Colorado. It's funny. So anyway, there's a direct line into NIST, a direct line into NPL in London, and a direct line into RISE, the RISE Institute. Those are where the official UTC source is. This is because the laws in the EU and the UK and the US are all different. The EU just requires UTC time. The UK requires NPL time, and the US requires NIST time.
So the blue, I just so you know, Robert, I'm actually located in Boulder, Colorado.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
So
We have
I did notice that the geography was a little off.
completely off. Yeah, exactly.
No big deal. But the blue locations then
Are other people?
are dark fiber connections to those
Yes,
physical locations.
that's
And
right.
then and then so one end is NIST, let's say right here in Boulder.
Right.
And then the other end of that line, it's hard to see on the map on my screen here. The other end of the line is going where?
Oh, NY4.
NY4. Okay. And that's a location that you guys have designated or something?
NY4 is the data center. It's one of the internationally known. It's an Equinix data center. Yeah.
Okay, got it. And so all these lines are dark fiber then?
Yeah. Low latency, low jitter, specifically engineered for this purpose. We have equipment. I mean, if you really want to know, we have equipment in all of those labs as well for transmission and measurement as well on both sides.
Okay. And to Ahmad's point, if you would like to know more about two-way satellite time transfer, happy to speak with you on that.
I am happy to do that. As I said, we're always looking for, that is our philosophy, is that the more clocks that we have, the better we're going to be able to withstand any kind of attack. So.
Yeah.
All right, Eric, yes, right.
I do have a question. To deploy your timing solution, is there a monthly or yearly subscription fee required?
We have a couple of different models, and I'm happy to discuss them in detail. We have a monthly fee for the time feed, sometimes, and then we do have client software. That software can be either purchased or it can be rented, essentially. So we have a couple of different ways of doing that, and I'm happy to, follow up with you however you'd like, and I can go through you in detail. Okay.
Any more questions?
Maybe one more question from me regarding this 100 nanosecond offset. On this network, is there additional traffic, or you have only very low throughput? And how many hops are those? Is it two pairs connected to each other, or are there more hops?
How many? Okay, so the first question I can answer, which is we have several levels of service. Our levels of service are also dependent on sort of the security requirements of our customers. Most of our customers want a dedicated fiber to their location with nobody else's data on it, and I completely understand that. That's my opinion. That said, we do offer two lower level services that people do use, which just deliver either over the internet but securely, or where they just sort of bring their own connectivity, which can work, right? So, but that's where it's a question of who's DMARC, you know what I mean? So.
Yeah, this is interesting. Like they basically, you're saying like there are different tiers. If someone, let's say, needs high precision, then you have to dedicate something more, let's say, I don't know, deterministic. And if it's less, then it's less. You just have like something like more like a shared.
Well, it turns out, I'm sorry, it turns out both things are very important, right? Because you have a security, it turns out the security thing does dominate here, right? Because, for instance, we've got cables that go into data centers all over the world where there are banks, right? So everybody would love to have access to those data lines. I don't have access to those data lines. Don't call me. I promise I don't, right? But that said, if somebody got in there, it'd be ugly, right? That's why I say certified. That's why we get audited, right? Yeah, so security dominates this question. That said, because they also have the accuracy requirement, Certainly having a dedicated fiber line makes it very difficult for somebody to try to man in the middle attack with you or something stupid, and then also gives you the ability to engineer that line. And then, Richard just gives them specifications on how he wants the line engineered. It works.
Any more questions?
Just a quick clarification on that 100 nanosecond offset. I just wanted to ask, how is it defined? Is it basically total error, including dynamic errors?
So we do have, so this isn't that most likely time patent. We do measure time according to the EU standard, which is very like in the US, the Google standard, which is we give you what we believe to be the most likely time, and then we give you our margin of error, positive and negative. And that margin of error for us should never exceed 100 nanoseconds at that level. And it's one of the things that we can guarantee, yes.
Okay, understood. So it's basically, you're targeting a total error here.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Oh, there is one thing I did want to add.
Sure.
We have some customers that don't, and this is actually one of the neat things about the OpenTap card. So I'm going to plug you now, is that we have some customers that don't want Ethernet into their locations, right? So they just want a PPS. This thing would be perfect. Yeah, so we could just put a box next to it.
An isolation, basically, the device that connects to the network, and then yeah.
So if you need that level of security, you're happy to do it, of course. Yeah.
Until someone figures out how to hack your computer via PPS input, right?
That sounds pretty. I mean, you could run a big charge, high voltage would probably kill it.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
And I think Mitch shared with us some patents or something. Mitch, do you want to add anything also?
Yeah, that's right. Richard is our founder.
All right. Anyone else? Any questions?
I didn't see the most likely time patent. It's in there somewhere, I'm sure. It sounds sort of like most likely frequency also. Or
who's speaking? I'll get the exact one I'm talking about sent to you. I'm not perfect.
This is Mitch. I just found went and Googled him. He's got a lot of patents. He's done a lot of stuff.
Right. It's one of those. I'll find the name and I'll send it to you. Thank you.
All right. Interesting.
Yeah. If you don't know him, Richard is, originally a clockmaker. He came to me while at FSM with a hardware card very similar to the OpenTap card. And we were considering, I think at the time, integrating it into our grandmasters, which looked like a great idea. And I'm not sure exactly. I think he decided not to stay in the hardware business. Pardon my mistake. Originally he made, I think he's most famous for his atomic wristwatch, which he did. He made the cesium wristwatch or something.
Yeah, that one jumped out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So there is an algorithm used in nuclear physics, not used today because it's all very well measured, but back in the day of trying to determine what the decay rate was. And so there was a method used in nuclear physics that sounds, just by the title, somewhat similar to this.
But you stumped me. What is it?
Well, it's just an algorithm. It's a method for determining what the most likely decay rate is whenever it's unknown.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Interesting. We'll find out tonight.
All right. Anyone else? Any questions? Calling once, calling twice. Okay, great. So again, thank you very much, and Robbie, and sorry for the confusion. And I mean, that proves
so
a
sorry.
lot. You just wake up Robbie and say, hey, give a presentation, he's ready in a minute. So it sounds like a pretty impressive. All right. And we'll give everyone back 9 minutes and see you guys in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Bye,
Have a good
everyone.
day.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye, everyone.